Good afternoon to you. 5:06 now. News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. You can join us, as always, at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. We're on the other side of the eclipse. Congratulations. You survived it. Whew. I thought the world was ending. The View told me the world was ending. They said it was climate change. Great to have you with us today. Hey, so what is going on in the world now that it's not over? Well, Joe Biden is still trying to throw grandmothers in prison. A 71-year-old grandmother this past week convicted for entering the Capitol building on January 6, 2021 for around 10 minutes and praying. Boy, that sounds dangerous. Was it assault prayers? What was going on exactly that she needs to be thrown in jail? Rebecca Lavenz convicted this past week 4 federal misdemeanor charges. That includes entering and remaining in a restricted building, zero hedge with the right up here, and disorderly and disruptive conduct. She faces up to a year in prison, $200,000 in fines. Her sentencing is scheduled for August 12th. For more on this and so much more, let's bring in Julie Kelly now, the author of the Declassified by Julie Kelly Substack and the author of January 6, How Democrats Used the Capitol Protest to Launch a War on Terror Against the Political Right. We're still seeing that now. Julie, great to talk to you as always.
Hi, Vince. Thanks for having me. And I missed the eclipse. I didn't even know it was happening.
I'm so sorry you missed. How did you miss it? Everyone else was screaming at you. It's happening now. It's happening now. That tells me everything about your news consumption, Julie. You live in some sort of sane world.
Or I'm just consumed by nonstop news about Trump and January 6th legal proceedings. So I miss all the good stuff.
All right,
I'm my own personal eclipse all the time. So who needs to go with?
You are quite a force. All right. So Julie, tell me about this, the January 6th grandma, Rebecca Lavenz. Do I have that right? That she just walked into the building, 10 minutes, she prayed, she left, and now her life is ruined?
Right. So first of all, this is a reminder that this Department of Justice and federal judges in Washington continue to investigate, arrest, charge, put before D.C. Democrat juries to convict for minor offenses that have never been charged in this manner ever, for even more violent protests, say the 2017 inaugural riots or the 2020 George Floyd riots in Washington. So this DOJ continues to round up people like 71-year-old Rebecca Lavenz, I believe is how you say her name, from Colorado. Uh-huh. Now, Vince, I just had my researcher, because, we have access to surveillance video, so we just tracked all of her movements as she was really pushed inside the Capitol by this huge group that was outside the east side doors, rotunda doors. The Columbus doors there. So I'm going to be posting that tonight, either on Twitter or tomorrow, Julie_X, so people can see it. Now, look, I did not see her praying at any point, but you could see her on her phone. She's chatting with police officers. She, like so many J6ers, didn't know where they were going inside the Capitol. She somehow ends up in the rotunda. She's looking up at all the beautiful paintings, chats with another police officer, and exits peacefully 10 minutes later. For that, she was arrested by FBI counterintelligence agents a few days before Christmas 2022, charged with these 4 common misdemeanors, and, like so many, had her life destroyed and now convicted by a jury.
Yeah.
DOJ has a perfect conviction rate before D.C. juries, by the way, for J6ers, and she will face sentencing later this year, and to your point, could spend up to a year in prison.
Did she choke out a cop, or did she take a lawmaker hostage or anything when she was in there?
I didn't see that. No, didn't see her chanting "Hang Nancy Pelosi" like all the feds were chanting. She didn't use bear spray against anyone. I did see her chatting with a police officer at the exit before she left. There were other people leaving the building at the same time, patting Capitol Police officer standing there, patting him on the shoulder, thanking him, et cetera. More of these terrorists, trying to assassinate police officers. So the video will demonstrate a lot more than just her movements inside the Capitol, but how others responded as well. But look, Vince, we are now at the 1,400 mark, 1,400 Americans now arrested and charged for this 4-hour disturbance more than 3 years later, because Joe Biden and the Democrats need to keep this issue front and center to make it look like Donald Trump and his supporters are really domestic
I know.
terrorists.
And they get more ridiculous by the day. 71-year-old grandmothers who went in for 10 minutes. We're like 5 minutes from them prosecuting an unborn child who was, being carried in utero into the building, who's now celebrating a couple birthdays later. They're like, you're being charged too. For what? It's honestly getting ridiculous.
Don't give him any ideas, Vince.
I
Don't
know.
give Matthew Graves, a DC U.S. attorney out there, don't give him any ideas.
I've got an idea for him. He could prosecute criminals. That would be a useful expression of his job, which is what he's supposed to be doing. But he's not doing that. Okay, let me move on to another injustice in our justice system, which is that, the left is very upset with a judge in Florida called Eileen Cannon. She's overseeing the document dispute between the Biden administration and Donald Trump. And they're furious at her because, as I understand it, she's not being mean enough to him. What is going on here?
Right. They're mad at Judge Eileen Cannon because, unlike, say, Judge Tanya Chutkan in Washington, or even you could argue Judge Scott Maxey in Fulton County, and certainly the other judges in New York presiding over Trump-related cases, she is not a rubber stamp for DOJ and Jack Smith. She has been very careful and deliberate in this unprecedented, complex case that deals with classified documents, national defense information. But the bad blood, and I have this piece up at Real Clear Investigations, goes back to when she authorized the appointment of a special master, a third party, following the FBI raid of Mar-a-Lago. She basically said, I don't trust the Department of Justice and FBI to handle this evidence as it should. So I think a third party or retired judge should be part of this, vetting process of this evidence as to what is evidence in a pending criminal case and what is personal privilege communication, which of course almost all of it was. So this started the bad blood, and this started her being sort of in the crosshairs of the Andrew Weissman types of the world who are demanding her recusal for none other than giving Donald Trump his due process rights and carefully handling this case. And aside from the special master order, which was reversed by the appellate court, she has issued other orders that are not favorable to Jack Smith, including unredacting some information that he wants concealed, not just from the public, but from the defendants themselves. So
there's no evidence that she has any conflict of interest, that she's treating him in some sort of special way, that like anything suggesting that she's doing something untoward. Have any of these people that are calling for her to step down or recuse, did any of them call for Fani Willis to be thrown off of the case in Georgia?
Oh, no, of course not. She was a hero. She's just, speaking her truth. And she's, she just happened to fall in love with the guy that she was paying $600,000, $700,000 out of the public kitty so they could go on vacations together. So no, of course not. And furthermore, I'll tell you what, I've been in the courthouse here in Southern Florida 3 times since November. I don't even see these people, Andrew Weissman, I don't see him showing up for these court hearings. I don't see Glenn Kirshner in the courthouse. I don't see any of her harshest critics actually showing up and watching her in action like I have. In fact, I think that there are corporate reporters who have respect for how she is handling this case, understanding. Yeah. I mean, look, she just denied 2 defense motions to dismiss the case for Presidential Records Act and vagueness of the Espionage Act. So it's not like, she is completely 100% siding with Donald Trump and the defendants.
Right.
But she also understands the gravity here. And furthermore, Vince, she understands the double standard of Donald Trump being the first president to ever be charged in this way when we just had Joe Biden skate for the same, if not worse, conduct in handling classified information, sharing it with ghostwriter, harboring it in unsecure locations in numerous buildings.
Do you get the sense that Judge Cannon is open to discussing whether or not this is selective prosecution?
I do. And I posted this piece after her March 14th hearing. This was 48 hours after Special Counsel Robert Hur gave his public and congressional testimony where he was under fire for both sides for his report. And she actually brought up the Hur report. And Judge Cannon forced Jay Bratt, who's the top prosecutor for Jack Smith, she forced him to admit a number of times that this was the first time that a former president or vice president had ever faced criminal charges for keeping classified or national defense information records. And she suggested to the government, to Jack Smith's team, that there there would be reason for Donald Trump to believe, given the history of people like Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, certainly now Joe Biden, Mike Pence, and others, that he would feel like he would not be prosecuted for doing the same thing that other top officials have done
Yeah.
as well. So there is a selective vindictive prosecution motion pending to dismiss. We've not seen it on the public docket, but if she was going to dismiss this case for anything, it would be based on selective vindictive prosecution, and she would have a very strong argument in doing so.
So I get the sense from the outside, and you've been reporting on all of this extensively, that Jack Smith has taken a very condescending approach to Judge Cannon, and that she doesn't like this. What are you seeing in the courtroom?
Well, in the courtroom, you can tell she's not a fan of Jay Brett, who is the lead prosecutor. And again, he was also involved in the special master case after the Mar-a-Lago raid. So they don't seem to get along that well. But she also presents forceful and tough questions to the defense attorneys, to Donald Trump's defense attorneys and his two co-defendants. She seems very unfazed by, the presence of Donald Trump or Jack Smith. She's handling this, she has a very good reputation. She's a former federal prosecutor, and she has a good reputation with her colleagues and people who've gone up against her as a prosecutor and certainly as a judge. There's a whole profile in the New York Times about this. So, but you do sense that, and look, she has seen these documents, right? She's seen the 32 files that the government claims are national defense information that he should not have had. And even though this is all sealed information, you kind of pick up that she believes that this case is garbage. Not only that it's unprecedented in nature, but that the evidence that they have, that they're trying to keep from Donald Trump and his co-defendants, that they will argue perhaps even jurors can't have full access to. You kind of get the sense that she believes this case is a pile of steaming garbage. And maybe she won't dismiss the case simply because she will want to force them to put this evidence before not just a jury in Southern Florida, but to the American people as well.
Before we let you go, Donald Trump has a lot of these legal cases that he's battling out. Among them is the one that's in Manhattan as well against Alvin Bragg is trying to bring this hush money case against Trump involving Stormy Daniels. And in that case today, apparently Donald Trump is suing the judge, Merchant, in that case. The New York Times describes it as a, quote, last-ditch attempt to avert the Manhattan trial. But this judge has imposed an onerous and what many legal experts consider unconstitutional gag order on Trump as he tries to defend himself in public here, especially during his campaign. What do you make of Donald Trump's back and forth with this judge who clearly hates Trump and is out to get him?
Well, look, Judge Juan Merchan, I have a piece also at Declassified with Julie Kelly explaining this. Judge Juan Merchan is completely compromised. He should not be within 100 yards of this trial because his daughter, Lauren, is a highly paid Democrat consultant who has made tens of millions of dollars, her firm being paid by people like Adam Schiff, Kamala Harris, even the Joe Biden campaign. And his gag order, the expanded one that he handed down several days ago, is not to protect witnesses or jurors or the integrity of judicial proceedings, which is commonly what we hear about Trump gag orders. No, his gag order is to prevent Donald Trump from telling the American people how compromised he is due to his daughter's lucrative business dealings with top Democrats who've spent years trying to take out Donald Trump. So, of course, what the left and Democrats and corporate media call delay tactics, the rest of us call due process, because we know that these judges, whether it's Engoron, whether it's Merchan, whether it's Tanya Chutkan, are compromised. They are partisan operatives in black robes. They should recuse from this case. But who do they turn their anger and their ire toward? Judge Cannon.
All right. Thank you, Julie Kelly, for all of your excellent work and reporting. As always, really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much. Okay, let's go to the phones. Mike calling in from Sunshine now on line one. Mike, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Thanks, Vince, for taking my call. There was a court case It was, I believe, Judicial Watch v. the National Archives. Bill Clinton had tapes kept in his sock drawer, and Judge Jackson said that the President of the United States had both presumptive and plenary power to declassify. Why? Because a subordinate with a slightly different agenda might tie that president in knots with regard to his ability to communicate with the American people. And so I'm not sure what this is about, Vince.
Yeah, going after Trump for these records they say are classified. It's entirely at Trump's discretion, and the precedent is well established through the Clinton sock drawer case, which you're right about the name of that case, and that was, and we've talked many times with Tom Fitton, the president of Judicial Watch, about this very thing, because Judicial Watch was going after these records and saying, hey, we want them. And finally, the decision was, well, actually, Clinton had every right to take them and do whatever he pleased. So the precedent has been set, hasn't it, Mike?
That's correct. He has presumptive power and plenary power to declassify. He could walk out with anything, and it's really then a political issue.
Also, it makes total sense, by the way, because we've seen presidents do it. They step up to a microphone, they're asked a question, and then they reveal something up until that point that had been classified. They can do that at their own discretion, on a moment's notice. And there's no process. They can just do it presumptively, as you point out.
Correct. There's not going to be somebody pulling him aside saying, you couldn't say that,
right,
sir. Yep.
Yeah. All right, Mike. Yeah, no, it's a good point. And, of course, we're watching as this case continues down in Florida. Lockdown. Trump is locked in it. And the Biden campaign has been bragging about draining Trump of his campaign funds. Have you seen this? They are so brazen about what they're doing right now. They've been bragging that they're taking money away from Trump so that he can't campaign because he's tied up in a court system that Joe Biden got him tied up in. More on that in a moment. Kind of the political stakes here. Also, all of a sudden, we've got some breaking news. All those Death to America chants out of Michigan, the White House now has a statement on them. I'll let you guess. That's coming up here on the Vince Coglianese Show. Stay with us. Hey, good afternoon to you. It is 5:35 now. News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. You can join us today, 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Democrats chanting Death to America in Michigan this past weekend. We got an update on that. The White House is now responding to it. But first, on the political fundraising side of things, the Biden campaign and the DNC are bragging that they brought in $90 million in March. That's a lot of money, $90 million. They've got a lot of very rich people trying to push and pull Joe Biden over the finish line. And they say President Joe Biden's 2024 campaign and affiliated groups announced a $90 million fundraising haul for March on Saturday. The total, which includes funds from the campaign, the Democratic National Committee, and affiliated joint fundraising committees, outpaces former President Donald Trump and the Republican National Committee's $65.6 million raised in the same month. Biden's fundraising apparatus now has more than double the amount of cash on hand as Trump's, at $192 million compared to $93.1 million, according to a press release from the Democrats. Here's a statement from Julie Chavez Rodriguez, campaign manager for Biden. Notice nobody ever talks about the campaign manager for Biden. Did you know the campaign manager for Biden is called Julie Chavez Rodriguez? I presume a woman, but you never know these days, especially with the Democrats. Quote, the money we are raising is historic, and it's going to the critical work of building a winning operation focused solely on the voters who will decide this election. She lied. Offices across the country, staff in our battleground states, and a paid media program meeting voters where they are. It's a stark contrast to Trump's cash-strapped operation that is funneling the limited and billionaire-reliant funds it has to pay off his various legal fees, she bragged. So, again, the Biden campaign is bragging about Joe Biden tying Donald Trump up in court. So Joe Biden's Justice Department arrests his top political opponent multiple times, charges him endlessly, ties him up in court, drains his campaign war chest, and then brags about it. That's how brazen they are. They're bragging in their official statements that they're draining Donald Trump's war chest. So are they interested in rigging elections? They're doing it. That's what this is. That's what this is, because they know Joe Biden can't win on his own, so they've got to rig things. Trump has had a great fundraiser, though, over the weekend. Former President Donald Trump brought in over $50.5 million at a campaign fundraiser in Palm Beach, Florida this past Saturday evening, the RNC confirming. Daily Caller right up here. The haul far outpaces that of President Joe Biden's $26 million that he brought in at a ritzy New York City fundraiser on March 28th, alongside former Democrat presidents Barack Obama and Bill Clinton, as well as various other celebrities, to include Lizzo. Didn't Lizzo say she was retiring after that? She's like, everyone's being mean to me. I think she's upset that people say that she's big-boned. I'm being generous. She was upset. She's like, oh, they're all so critical. Wait a second. You made your whole entire career off of that. First of all, she's got powerful vocals, no question. But the whole, her whole existence has been, I'm the fat one. Okay. Well, are you embracing that or are you against it? What's the deal? People bring it up. She doesn't like it. Anyway, she was there. She helped raise $26 million for Joe Biden. Trump's fundraising event broke, quote, every fundraising record in history for a Republican or Democrat, according to the RNC's press release. That is a big haul, $50.5 million. Imagine what you could do with the money. Tonight will be an incredible night for President Trump and the Republican Party. They said this was on Saturday, raising an astounding $50.5 million. That was a Trump campaign advisor, Chris LaCivita, as well as Susie Wiles. But meanwhile, after locking up the nomination in one of the fastest primaries in modern political history, Donald J. Trump is winning poll after poll and proving that the enthusiasm is on his side. It's clearer than ever that we have the message, the operation, and the money to propel President Trump to victory on November 5th. All right, remember that fundraiser is in April, so the March numbers I just cited for you wouldn't include the April fundraising haul. So that's a huge difference maker, so we'll see what the numbers look like at the beginning of the next month, but that's a big deal, and obviously you need money to campaign. Voter registration update for you as well. One more thing. There's a lot going on. Florida is turning ruby red. There was this moment at the beginning of the century where we thought of Florida as a swing state. With each successive Trump victory in Florida and the success that Governor Ron DeSantis has had down in Florida, it's becoming more and more clear that it's a Republican state, not a swing state. And now we see Republican registered voters are now outnumbering Democrats by nearly 1 million in the state of Florida. This has never happened. It was not like this. Ron DeSantis said on X this past weekend that prior to 2021, Florida never had more registered Republicans than Democrats. Now there's 1 million voter Republican registration advantage that's within reach. There are about 900,000 is the number right now, Republicans over Democrats. Hillsborough County, that's Tampa, Florida, Hillsborough County. You may recognize it from the show Cops through the years. The Hillsborough County Sheriff's Department always let the cops guys ride along with them as they were busting crime. So you saw a lot of Hillsborough County back on that show. Hillsborough is about to flip from D to R, says Ron DeSantis, which will mean every county in the Tampa Bay market has a Republican advantage in a previously swing region of the state. So that's pretty cool. And that's a sign, I think, of certainly the politics in Florida changing quite a bit, but also the people who are flowing there. There's net migration into the Sunshine State, and for good reason. People want to go there to escape the leftist hellholes from which they're coming, and also no income tax. And it's a pretty state. And it's got good air conditioning during the very humid summer, which is really critical if you're going to live in Florida. You have to have a good working air conditioner. Thank you to HVAC guys everywhere who provide modifications to the climate inside of these buildings. That's a big deal. All right, let's go to Michigan now. Let's fly away from Florida to Michigan, where Democrats have been chanting "Death to America" over the weekend. Yeah, the "Death to America" chants are really something, aren't they? And normally you think of them as being overseas, but you have the New York Post reporting anti-Israel activists were heard chanting "Death to America" and "Death to Israel" at a rally in a Michigan city recently dubbed the jihad capital of the United States. The sick chants erupted at a rally Friday in Dearborn, Michigan, marking Al-Quds Day, in which Muslims around the world denounced Israel, according to a video that was posted online by the Middle East Media Research Institute. They came after Dearborn activist Tarek Bazi ripped the United States for supporting Israel and told the crowd that the chant "Death to Israel" has become the most logical chant across the world today. In fact, I've got some audio for you here of what happened over the weekend. Here we go. Here's Tarek Bazi is chanting here. And at one point, a man starts chanting, "Death to America." Take a listen to this.
We've been asked in the past, why are our protests on the International Day of Quds, why are they so anti-America? Why don't we just focus more on Israel and not talk so much about America? Gaza has shown the entire world why these protests are so anti-America. Because it's the United States government that provides the funds for all of the atrocities that we just heard about. And this is why Imam Khomeini, who declared the International Day of Quds, this is why he would say to pour all of your chants and all of your shouts upon the head of America.
Death to America. Death to America. That's what they're repeating and chanting.
Malcolm X said, and I quote, "We live in one of the rottenest countries that has ever existed on this earth. It's not Genocide Joe that has to go. It's the entire system that has to go."
So help me out here. So if you've got American citizens who go into a Capitol building on January 6, 2021, expressing that they'd like to preserve this country, and then you've got these guys standing in the middle of the street in Dearborn, Michigan, in the United States of America, chanting "Death to America," and that we need to destroy this system. He continues here.
Any system that would allow such atrocities and such devilry to happen and would support it, such a system does not deserve to exist on God's earth. And so when these fools ask us if Israel has the right to exist, the chant "Death to Israel" has become the most logical chant shouted across the world today.
And he chants "Death to Israel." All right, and you heard him say that this system here in the United States needs to be destroyed. So, insurrection, anyone? Do we have one on our hands, or what do we have to wait for that? So how, can we, any deportations lined up? Anybody here who's not an American citizen who we can quickly handle? Anybody? Anything? What are we going to do? The White House is claiming today that they condemn this. This is the claim from the White House today. Reagan Reese, my colleague over at the Daily Caller, has reached out to the White House today and said, "What's the deal? What's the deal?" And good for her, because you understand how this would work in any other direction. If the media could even for a second be like, "Oh, these are kind of Republican people," they will just pick a group that has nothing to do with Republicans, and they'll say, "Do you condemn? Do you condemn? Do you condemn?" So Reagan goes to the White House today. Hey, do you condemn this? Do you condemn what's happening here? White House headline: White House condemns "Death to America" chants from Michigan Arab community. This is going to put them in a pickle. This is an electoral issue for Biden, because here he is now condemning his own voters. The whole reason they've taken this ridiculous, this eggshell approach to Israel is because they're concerned about Michigan, and they are trying to suck up to the anti-Israel vote in Michigan, given how close that state is. And they wouldn't have to worry about any of this if they weren't destroying auto manufacturing jobs in Michigan. They could resolve this whole electoral problem in a second by backing off on the electric car stuff that's destroying jobs in Michigan. They could. The White House condemned protesters, Reagan writes, who were caught on video at an Al-Quds Day rally in Dearborn, Michigan, chanting "Death to America" in a Monday statement to the Daily Caller. She describes what you just heard. The White House gave a statement today. Andrew Bates is the name of the guy, a White House spokesman. He told the Daily Caller, "The White House condemns these abhorrent and anti-Semitic remarks in the strongest terms. As President Biden has said, America is the greatest nation on earth and a beacon to the world." A beacon to the world. So that's the entirety of the statement here. Have you seen much coverage of this, by the way, outside of the words you just heard me express or the Daily Caller's coverage today? Nope. No, this piece was published, let's see, about 3 hours ago. Reagan getting this up on the Daily Caller website. The White House has given condemnation, but the media is not telling people about this right now. You know why? Because in order for them to talk about the White House statement, they would have to talk about the predicate for the White House statement. They'd have to tell you that there was a group of people who are Democrats standing in the middle of Dearborn, Michigan, screaming death to America, death to Israel. So they are hoping that this whole thing gets memory hold. The White House checks the box. They say we condemn those chants. The media don't cover it, perhaps under pressure from the White House. We don't know. And the rest is history. It just goes away. Make this thing go away. Literally moments ago, I just searched. I wanted to see if anybody else was covering the White House statement today. Not a soul. The Daily Caller with the exclusive. Nobody else picking it up. And I guess one of the other reasons it might be that they have to cite the Daily Caller. That could be one of the explanations here. But the more realistic explanation is they don't want to acknowledge this. They don't want to talk about what's happening here. That we now have chants of death to America in the streets of the United States of America. Disgraceful. And this is a Biden administration which has promised that they're going to root out extremism. Remember that? Do you remember their claims? We're going to hunt for extremism. We got to get rid of all this extremism in the United States. What's more extreme than calling for the destruction of the United States? Not just the destruction, the death of our country. Death to America. The chants of terrorists found here in the United States. They did an entire extremism audit of the United States military. Do you remember this? A national stand down. They said, we got to find all the extremism. Guess how much they found? None. They found like a gang member or something here or there. But it was none. It was a whimper of a report that came out. They buried it. They tried to keep it out of your sight. What was it, December, I think? This past December? A report finally comes out, and it turns out it was nothing. It was nothing. Instead, the White House had spent its time, and the Biden administration has spent their time, demonizing the fine men and women of the United States military, suggesting that there was something broken about them, that they were prone to extremism, that they were going to be the source of the chaos of the United States. Just a vicious slander against people who volunteer to wear the uniform and serve this country. And now we have people chanting death to America in the middle of the streets of Michigan. And somehow they missed this? How come we weren't alerted to this? Where was the bulletin to tell us that this was going on? Nothing. And then today, the White House, hoping they can get away with a quick box-checking condemnation. Oh, yeah, we condemn that. We love America. And no media coverage to even tell people what happened. None. All right, Frank's calling in from Ashburn now. Frank, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show. Hello.
Hello, Vince. How are you? Thank you for your show and your love for America.
Thank you, sir.
Just a couple of things. In that lovely group, to your point, that was shouting death to America, I bet you there wasn't one Republican in the crowd, number one.
No.
Number two, when do we as a country stand up and say enough? You're going to say that about our country, go back, throw them offshore to the countries that were religious.
Frank, you can't curse, man. I can't air the curse, but go ahead. I love the passion. I can't air the curse.
Okay. So when do we say, enough, go back to the countries that you left to come here?
Yeah.
When you were to stand on our shores and denigrate us?
Yeah.
When do we have enough, Vince?
I know.
I don't know. When do people speak up?
I know. It kills me. It breaks your heart to see what's happening to your own country. Frank, thank you. It's such a good point. Frank getting passionate there. I don't blame him. You hear somebody chanting death to America inside of your own country? It's like, usually it's like, you think of like the cartoon characters overseas. Death to America. All right, shut up. Who cares? Here in America, Biden let that happen. Biden stoked that. It's just awful. Just awful. Oh, man. Can we end on a happier note? Hey, did you see? Here's a happy note for you. The women's basketball game yesterday, the Iowa-South Carolina game, it didn't go the way that a lot of people wanted. They wanted Caitlin Clark and Iowa to win. It was the most watched basketball game, either pro or college, in the last 5 years. Everybody wanted to watch this game, and apparently everybody was. We were watching it. I thought it was great. The South Carolina team, congratulations to them for winning. Their coach, Dawn Staley, is an excellent basketball coach. She's a moron in every other category, though. She's like, they keep asking her about all these leftist issues, and she takes the most sort of status quo, cowardly positions. She's like, yeah, men can play women's sports, sure.
Dan Zakrzewski, Outkick coach, you just talked about, what a massive weekend this is, obviously, for women's basketball, women's sports in general. One of the major issues facing women's sports right now is the debate, discussion topic about the inclusion of transgender athletes, biological males in women's sports. I was wondering if you would tell me your position on that issue.
Damn, you got deep on me, didn't you?
Uh-oh.
I'm under the opinion of
Come on, girl. Say it.
if you're a woman, you should play. If you consider yourself a woman and you want to play sports or vice versa, you should be able to play.
Oh, goodness gracious. A woman bringing up all these talented players, now destroying them. It's the left really wrecks everything it touches. The great one, Mark Levin, up next here on WMAL.